This 15-minute long video is a collection of 4 shorter videos played one after the other, all made by individual dancers. Esther is a white woman in her 20s with an undercut skin fade hairstyle. Throughout the video, she applies makeup in front of a dressing table mirror and poses for the camera, dancing in her kitchen and walking in the local area. Andy is a middle-aged white man with a slender frame and short salt and pepper hair that stands up in a small peak at the front. This 3.5-minute long video is mainly dialogue and set in an apartment and by the pebbled shore of the sea. Ellis is a white woman in her 20s with shoulder-length brown hair pulled back into a ponytail. She's dressed all in black with a t-shirt worn over snug-fitting shorts, leaving her legs bare. This 3.5-minute video mainly takes place in a field of fruit trees on a summer's day. The next film is by Nicholas, a middle-aged man who appears only briefly in the film, although his face is never shown. The only time it gets close, he opens a red fan wide before him, shielding his face from view. The images in this film, cut between sandy or pebbly beaches on the Suffolk coast, are an interior location in front of closed curtains.
Generally I say that I'm bi, but I think queer tends to sit better with me. But I also like saying I'm gay. I saw something recently about bi women being just as gay as lesbians, and it feels pretty spot on.
Esther puts on makeup at the mirror.
Moving away from church was definitely a big part of my self-acceptance and in my coming out journey. But then, years later, I see other people that I grew up with also coming out. Grew up with in church, coming out. It makes you feel far less alone. And you can look back on those times and think, oh, I wasn't the only person feeling that. And I see some amazing people in Suffolk who are religious people who are doing so many things for the LGBT community. Reverend Andy Dochin is one of the fiercest allies I've ever met, and he does so much for our community. But I think because of the friends from church around me that were quite anti-gay, I think I assumed that that's what my family would be as well, which I found out was not the case at all. And I think the first person I came out to when I was about 15, I don't know if it was coming out, it was more me saying I'm a bit worried that I'm having these thoughts. And I was told to pray the gay away. And I was being tested.
She lounges on the sofa.
The devil, whatever. Watching too much telly.
Reads a book in the sunshine.
I think internalised homophobia is something that all of us deal with on our coming out journeys, and it's not something that goes away overnight as soon as you come out. It's something you have to face up to in so many different situations.
She taps her fingernails.
Dolly Parton taught me a lot about femininity and how it can be playful, and it doesn't matter what men think about it, whether they think it's stupid or you're a dumb blonde or whatever, that it's not for them. And I think when I discovered that, I didn't shy away from my femininity as much. Sometimes I feel too femme.
She stretches.
To be queer and too butch to be straight. But then I look at Dolly Parton and she reminds me that I'm just how I need to be.
She shimmies her shoulders.
I certainly feel quite different here, but I think I've also spent a lot of time being able to work out what my expression is. It's hard to find a guy in Suffolk who respects bisexuality, queerness, and then there aren't many queer women of my age in Ipswich, and that's hard to meet someone. Over lockdown I try and go for a walk as much as I could and would walk around Holywell's Park a lot. And the other day I saw on the Ipswich Museum Instagram that Thomas Gainsborough painted Holywell's Park, and obviously it looked very different. I like to imagine a little dyke like me walking around the scene with an undercut, skin fade, a black denim jacket.
She poses on her bed wearing a white suit.
But I can really see some changes in Suffolk that are happening, especially over the last few years with Pride, and it's really great.
I think there's more youth involvement in the queer community, and queer communities outside of cities. I think that's definitely growing. A lot of people can't afford to move to cities and go to where the queer culture is. They're kind of building the community that they want to see rather than just accepting what's there, which I think is great. And, organisations like Outreach Youth and Pride and, so many other things are growing. I went along to Suffolk Pride in 2019. I just went down because a friend had a stall. I wasn't expecting the turnout that was there. And for me and a lot of my queer friends that grew up here, it was a really emotional day because we hadn't realised we'd had so much support. And then I became really involved in the queer community in Suffolk. And I think it has such a strong sense of community. It feels warm. And it's been so nice to have been a part of that when I thought growing up that there wasn't anything like that here in Ipswich.
She folds her blanket in the sunshine, gathers up her book, and walks away. A caption reads, Esther, and the picture goes black.
7 years old, maybe. Very interested in the Trajan Empire. And also Roman soldiers. Also Greek soldiers. Was it the history or was it the muscles?
A caption reads, Andy.
1970, 9 years old at boarding school. Classmate slips into my bed. We're cuddling for comfort, or maybe more.
He hunches in front of a fireplace, his fingers splayed.
1988, out to best friend. Don't die of ignorance. Long-term relationship possible. Doc Martens.
A close-up of his black leather shoes.
Early 90s, out. Made partner. Senior partner says, can you mark it to that pink pound?
Hunched on the ground, he makes a fist at his back and the other fist reaches forward.
1996, pop stars. Dancing my face off and the night away to indie music. This is so me. I found another home. 1997, counsellor. Helped me put all my pieces out there to see. Helped so much.
He looks into his hand and coils it away from him.
2006, spring, Suffolk. Moving for countryside, sea, and to be near family. Apprehensive. Only gay in the village? Like heck. Moving to Fairy Glen, and that's how it's always been. There's been tolerance, acceptance, and kindness, as well as discrimination and hatred. But we must remember the toleration, the acceptance, the kindness, as well as the discrimination and hatred. It may have been easier for me, and it isn't so easy for many.
He swings his arm in front of a window, dives into the sea.
And he spoke to me. Just assumed. Didn't say anything, didn't ask, just knew. You're queer, I know it. And by the way, then Andy knew it. And it was clear.
He sits on a pebbled beach watching the calm, rippling water.
Didn't have language, didn't have words, didn't have reference points, didn't have any context. There wasn't anybody I could see who I'd identified as anything like me. I did things happened. I enjoyed them. They seemed okay. And yet I didn't know what it was, or how to define it, or how to order it.
He moves his hands as though smoothing a ball between them and flings it into the sea. A caption reads, Andy, and the screen darkens.
So yeah, we met online. She's Australian and she was in Australia, and we got to know each other, and we're always saying, if you live nearby, I would date you, but what a shame. And eventually it worked out that she managed to do a work placement over here one summer, and we got to meet, and the rest is history. We did another year of being long distance, of being 9,500 miles apart while she finished her degree back in Australia. And then luckily she got a job here in Suffolk and moved over. And now we both live together with our little puppy and we're so incredibly happy.
A caption reads, Ellis.
I feel like it's been such a gradual process. It goes on and on, you know, there's never an end to coming out to people because there's always going to be new friends, new work colleagues, new places, you know? Yeah, I think of it as a constant journey rather than a series of steps, personally. I grew up in Suffolk. I was born here. It's the place where I went to school. It's, you know, I made all my first friends. It's where I first realised that I was queer.
In the garden, a ripple runs through her body.
Then I went off to university in London and I thought that big change was going to be the big thing that made my life different, that made me, you know, moving out of a small village and into a big city. I thought that was going to be the time when I get to become myself, but actually it made me all the more anxious. And now it's the place that I've returned to and I live with my girlfriend and the happiest I've been. So yeah, Suffolk feels like home. I think my biggest challenges came from my family. I grew up in a single parent household with a very anxious parent and I think she was far more scared about the consequences of me being gay were than what I was. And I definitely think that held me back for a long time.
Our hands slide over each other.
It was definitely said to me that, you know, it's going to affect your career, it's going to affect your life, but actually I haven't found that to be the case at all. I would just like to see people assume less that everyone's going to be heteronormative and cisgender. Every time I've started a new job or, you know, met new people, it's always, do you have a boyfriend, and never, do you have a partner? I think Suffolk is still quite behind the times in terms of not necessarily judging you if you are different, but definitely just expecting you to conform. And I'd like to see that change.
Ellis and her girlfriend dance happily together under the trees. A caption reads, Ellis, and the screen goes black.
Time shrinks time. What I mean is, the older you get, the more all of your life is sort of gathered up, and you carry it with you.
A caption reads, Nicholas.
I came to Suffolk 40 years ago, in my early 20s, and I lived in Lowestoft. I soon had a girlfriend, a flat on the seafront, and a dog. I learned to swim in the sea. I trained for the first Norfolk Marathon, running the back lanes of Carlton Colville. I roller skated to work along the Esplanade all the way to Pakefield.
The rough scrub of the shoreline.
In Lowestoft, in 1981, I fancied the boy in the flat downstairs. I found out what cottaging meant.
The silhouetted figure of a man stands before a closed curtain.
So I ran away and started again, to Oxford and to London, completely a new life. As a student, new friends, but still a double life, half in, half out. My first gay bar, 1982, the Coven in Oxford. I walked past it a dozen times before I dared go in, and then passion. My first trip to the London scene, men only, the Copacabana in Earls Court Road. Heaven, heaven, heaven. Heaven, men in cages wearing only jockstraps and boots, band dancers, strobe lights, obsession, infatuation, men, boys, men, men, men. I discovered the joy of passion.
He dances in the flickering light.
I came out to my sister first, 1983, and to a few friends at university, and not directly to my parents. No. A pair of bare feet flexed their toes. In a pub in Oxford called the Roebuck, I was told to get behind the bar upstairs on gay night and run it. So I did. We had a visit from a New London group called the Terence Higgins Trust. On the TV, there was a Horizon programme called Killer in the Village. My sister said my mum had seen it. So had she. Had I. And so then came AIDS.
The screen goes dark, then flickers to life with a red fan.
I soon realised that clubbing and sex and all of that was great, but if I was to be true to myself and live openly as a gay man, I needed to find others and other ways to meet men. So I saw an advert in Time Out for a coffee evening in Woodford, and that is where I met my soulmate. And we've been together through thick and thin, the highs and the lows, the adventures we've had.
2 hands clasped
for 37 years.
on a tabletop.
Create is to be, and living again in Suffolk on the coast inspires me enormously. The landscape for a start, the people,
A pair of feet walk along a beach.
the changes, a different time now, but I mean, you remember the past, you bring it with you.
A man in black trousers and a grey shirt.
But I look forward to the future, and being queer is a part of me. It's not my total being, but it's a very important part, and it filters a focus on all that I do, really. So I'm proud of that, proud of what I lived through, and I'm proud of being here now and being able to be open and welcomed.
Waves roll onto a pristine sandy beach. Captions read, Nicholas. With special thanks to all of the dancers who filmed themselves, Esther Alcock, Andy Newman, Ellis Rother and Nicholas Stone. Lead dance artist, Stuart Waters. Audio description by Willie Elliott.